Elaine Donald had always believed that the quiet strength inside her was something no one could take away. Not age, not hardship, not even loneliness. But in her 69 years of life, she never expected that the deepest cuts would come from the very people she had raised, loved, and sacrificed everything for. She had built a small empire, 12 boutique luxury hotels, each bearing her signature aesthetic of warmth and understated elegance. She had raised her only son, Adrian, with love and devotion after losing her husband so young. She had endured the long years of widowhood, loneliness, and financial struggle, climbing from the position of a night shift receptionist to the owner of a hospitality group worth millions. But none of that mattered to her family, not to Adrian, and certainly not to the woman he married. Adrian had always been bright, charismatic, and ambitious when he was young. Elaine remembered him running up to her after school, waving a drawing he made and saying, "Look, Mom, I drew our house and your hotel. One day I'm going to own a big company too." She remembered the boy who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms, clutching her arm and whispering that he felt safe when she was there. She remembered the boy who told her she was the strongest person in the world. But people grow up, and sometimes they grow away. The shift in Adrian didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly, like vines twisting around a tree trunk, tightening over the years without her noticing. By the time he met Bianca, the transformation was nearly complete. Bianca was 32, stunning in the way that made strangers look twice, with an almost porcelain beauty that seemed sculpted rather than grown. But beneath her perfect hair and manicured nails was a calculation that Elaine spotted early on. Bianca was charming at first, warm, polite, even friendly, but the politeness cracked quickly. Soon she started speaking to Adrian for him, answering questions directed at him, making decisions without consulting him, telling him how to dress, where to apply for work, who to avoid, what to believe. She slowly isolated him from friends and then from family. She corrected his opinions, subtly mocked his interests, and whenever he resisted even slightly, she turned cold and distant until he apologized. And Adrian always apologized. Elaine saw it happening, but she told herself that marriages had growing pains. She didn't want to interfere. But what she couldn't see was how Bianca manipulated Adrian financially, emotionally, and socially. Bianca had mastered the art of guilt and reward. A small disagreement was met with a frosty silence, then tears, then long, dramatic speeches about how no one appreciated her, how everyone was against her, how she gave so much and received nothing in return. Then, when Adrian finally caved and did exactly what she wanted, she rewarded him with affection and praise. He never stood a chance. Over the years, Bianca worked hard to reshape Adrian's entire world. She convinced him that Elaine was old-fashioned, that she didn't understand modern life, that she exaggerated her accomplishments, that she was lonely and desperate for attention. Slowly, expertly, she rewrote Elaine's story in Adrian's mind until he saw his mother not as the strong, independent, successful woman she was, but as an aging, fragile burden. Elaine never knew how deep the manipulation ran. Not yet. The invitation to the family trip came unexpectedly. Adrian called her on a Tuesday afternoon while she was reviewing renovation plans for one of her properties. "Mom," he said, sounding upbeat in a way that immediately made her suspicious, "we were thinking, why don't you come with us on a week-long vacation? The kids would love it." Elaine sat up straighter, surprised. "Really? That sounds lovely. Where were you thinking of going?" "Palm Shore Grand." Her heart warmed. That resort was her pride and joy, the crown jewel of the Donald Hospitality Group. A 5-star oceanfront sanctuary designed to feel soft, warm, and deeply personal. She had poured her soul into it. "That sounds wonderful. she said gently. "I'd love to spend time with all of you." Bianca's voice chimed faintly in the background. "Tell her to pack light and make sure she brings comfortable walking shoes. She gets tired easily." Adrian repeated her words almost verbatim. Elaine ignored the sting. She focused on the hope. She wanted this week to be a turning point, a chance to reconnect, to show her grandchildren who she really was, to show Bianca that she could be gentle and supportive without being a threat. She didn't know that Bianca had ulterior motives. Bianca had been telling everyone that Elaine needed to be looked after now, that she couldn't manage alone, that this vacation was a charity, a favor. The drive to the resort confirmed Elaine's fear that she was no longer a part of Adrian's world. Bianca talked for 4 straight hours about spas, influencer meetups, designer boutiques, and yacht excursions. She insisted that Adrian call the hotel 3 times on the road. Make sure they don't mess up the penthouse reservation. Tell them again that we expect priority treatment. Say my name. They should know my name by now. Every time Elaine tried to join the conversation, Bianca cut her off subtly. "That's not what I was talking about, Elaine. Oh, this is more sophisticated than that. You wouldn't get it. It's a modern trend." Adrian didn't step in, didn't defend her, didn't even see what was happening. When they finally arrived at Palm Shore Grand, Elaine felt her breath catch. She remembered the night she had stood in this very lobby alone, long before the grand opening, staring up at the massive chandelier she had handpicked. She remembered the team she had hired, the hours spent perfecting the gold undertones of the marble, the soft music she chose to make guests instantly relax. Everything in this lobby was a reflection of her taste, her values, her heart. Adrian didn't notice. Bianca didn't care. They marched straight to the front desk where Marisol stood greeting guests with her usual calm grace. When Marisol saw Elaine behind them, something flickered in her expression: surprise, admiration, and a hint of confusion. But Elaine raised her hand subtly. "Not yet," she mouthed. Marisol nodded, shifting into her professional mode. "Good afternoon," she said warmly. "Welcome to Palm Shore Grand. How may I assist you?" Adrian smiled confidently. "Reservation under Donald. We should be in the penthouse suite." Marisol typed swiftly. "I have your reservation right here. You're confirmed for the Ocean View Deluxe Suite, but the penthouse is booked for the entire week." Bianca froze, staring at her in disbelief. No, that's impossible. We requested the penthouse weeks ago." Marisol offered a polite smile. "I understand, but unfortunately, no," Bianca snapped. "That's not acceptable. I don't care who is in it. Move them. Do you know who we are?" Elaine stepped forward, trying to soothe things. "Bianca, the deluxe suite is beautiful. Maybe we could—" "Don't speak," Bianca spun toward her sharply. Elaine stopped immediately, stunned. Bianca turned back to Marisol. "Don't listen to her. She's just the help we brought along." The words echoed across the marble lobby. Guests turned to look. A family paused mid-conversation. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that?" Elaine's face rushed with humiliation. 30 employees who admired her could see her now being treated like a servant in her own hotel. She felt an ache in her chest, like something inside her was cracking. Adrian laughed, a real laugh. "Bianca, you're so bad, Mom. Just please go sit down and let us handle this." Elaine didn't respond. She simply nodded, walked away, and sat quietly near the fountain, pretending to be invisible. That night she barely slept. The humiliation replayed in her mind like a loop she couldn't stop. She could have revealed everything, could have snapped her fingers and changed the dynamic instantly. But she didn't want to embarrass Adrian. She didn't want to cause a scene. She wanted to believe things could still get better. The next morning, Adrian knocked loudly. "Mom, we're heading to breakfast. Bianca says you'll watch the kids afterwards." Elaine blinked. No apology? No acknowledgement of the previous day? Not even a polite greeting. At breakfast, Bianca terrorized the staff again. Complaints about the eggs, the juice, the table placement. She refused to let Elaine hug her granddaughter. "Don't touch her hair. I paid a lot for that styling." The children barely acknowledged Elaine. Bianca had spent years whispering poison in their ears. After breakfast, Bianca rattled off a list of instructions as if Elaine was the newly hired nanny. "Keep them out of the sun. No snacks. Don't let them in the deep end. Call me if anything happens, and don't try to handle anything on your own." Elaine nodded quietly, swallowing her hurt. Later that afternoon, while the kids were at the resort's kids club, Elaine walked alone around the property. She passed the private cabanas and froze when she heard Bianca's voice inside one of them. "She's almost 70. Once she's gone, everything will be ours anyway." Someone gasped. Adrian's voice followed. "To be honest, I think she'll last maybe 5 more years. She's already losing it." Elaine stepped closer, heart pounding. "What about her finances?" a man asked. "She has nothing," Adrian said. "I support her. She's basically dependent on me." Elaine felt her knees weaken. "That's why this trip is so annoying," Bianca added. "We had to bring her, pay for her meals, babysit her. She can't afford to do anything herself." Adrian laughed. "Mom actually told the kids she owns hotels. Can you believe that?" Bianca snorted. "She's delusional." Something inside Elaine snapped. She walked away calmly, though she felt like she was floating outside her own body. Her mind was strangely clear, her heart strangely steady. She called Marisol. She said, "Prepare a private room and bring security." Marisol didn't ask why. She simply replied, "Yes, Mrs. Donald." Elaine spent the afternoon with the kids, but her mind was elsewhere, quiet, calculating, resolute. When Adrian and Bianca returned to her room that evening, Bianca shoved past her. "We're going out. Put the kids to sleep." Elaine didn't move. "You won't be going anywhere tonight," she said calmly. Bianca scoffed. "You have no right—" Elaine interrupted, her voice sharper than they had ever heard it. "Sit down." They froze. Something in her tone made them obey. And that was the moment the world they knew began to collapse. Elaine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. There was a steadiness in her tone that neither Adrian nor Bianca had ever heard before, an authority that felt ancient, immovable, and absolute. Adrian sat down slowly on the edge of the sofa, confused and nervous. Bianca stayed standing, arms crossed, chin lifted in defiance, but even she hesitated. Elaine looked at them quietly for a moment before speaking. "I heard your conversation behind the cabana today," she said. "Every word." Bianca rolled her eyes. "Oh, please." "So what? It was a private conversation." Elaine lifted her gaze slowly. "You said I was delusional, that I'm an embarrassment, that you're waiting for me to die so you can inherit everything." Bianca froze. Adrian blinked rapidly, his face draining of color as if the blood had fled in shame or fear. Elaine continued, her voice calm and steady. "I said I'm broke, that Adrian pays for me, that I'm a burden, that I'm here to babysit, and you said all of it without a single moment of guilt." Adrian swallowed hard. "Mom, we were just venting. You're taking it out of context." "There is no context," Elaine said, "that makes any of this acceptable." Bianca scoffed loudly. "Oh, stop with the dramatics. If you didn't want to hear the truth, you shouldn't have eavesdropped." Elaine shook her head slowly. "The truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it stood in front of you and held out hand." Bianca opened her mouth to argue, but in that precise moment, there was a soft knock. Marisol entered the room, flanked by 2 security officers dressed in discreet black suits. They stood with hands clasped professionally behind their backs, their expressions neutral, but prepared. Bianca's eyes widened. "Why is security here?" Marisol bowed her head respectfully toward Elaine. "Mrs. Donald, everything is ready whenever you are. Bianca blinked in confusion. Her head slowly turned toward Elaine, searching her face for an explanation. Mrs. Donald? Why did you call her that? Elaine looked at her son. Adrian knows my name. I assume he also remembers his own. Adrian frowned slightly. Mom, what is this? Elaine stepped aside so she could walk to the desk. She pulled out a large folder, thick with documents, receipts, and financial summaries. She set it down slowly on the table between them. You think I'm dependent on you, she said softly. You think you support me. You think I live in a tiny apartment and struggle to survive. She tapped the folder. This is the truth. Adrian looked down bewildered, then reached slowly for the folder and opened it. His eyebrows shot up instantly. He flipped a page, then another, then a third. His breath hitched. What is this? He whispered. Bianca leaned over, snatching a page, scanning it. Her face twisted with confusion. What am I looking at? The pages were itemized lists of payments Elaine had made on Adrian's behalf over the past 5 years. Mortgage payments, private school tuition, credit card bills Bianca racked up in boutiques and salons, vacation expenses, medical bills, car repairs, even Adrian's life insurance premiums. Adrian stared at one particular document in disbelief. You paid for my mortgage every month? Elaine nodded. Yes. Bianca shook her head furiously. You're lying. You're forging these. Why would you do this? Marisol spoke up gently. Mrs. Donald doesn't forge documents. These were processed through our corporate accounts. Bianca's eyes widened again. What do you mean, corporate accounts? Elaine took a slow breath. You wanted to know who you were talking to. You wanted the truth. So here it is. She turned to Marisol. Tell them. Marisol clasped her hands and said clearly, Mrs. Elaine Donald is the founder and owner of the Donald Hospitality Group. She owns 12 luxury hotels across the East Coast. Palm Shore Grand Resort is the flagship property. She is our CEO and the sole owner of this resort. Silence fell like a hammer. Adrian's lips parted in shock. He stared at his mother as if seeing her for the first time in his life. Bianca staggered backward, the color draining rapidly from her face. No, that's not possible. She's old. She's poor. She told us. Elaine interrupted gently. I never told you I was poor. I never told you anything about my finances because you never asked. You let us believe that. You let us think that. You told yourselves whatever you wanted to believe, Elaine said quietly. Bianca turned to Adrian, panic rising. Tell her she can't do this. Tell her we're not checking out. Elaine's voice remained steady. You are checking out tomorrow morning. Every expense you incurred will be charged to your own credit card. Adrian looked devastated. Mom, please don't. Elaine raised a hand. Stop. You called me delusional. You told people I made up stories about owning hotels. You let your wife treat me like hired help. You laughed while she humiliated me in the lobby of a hotel I built. Adrian closed his eyes in shame. Elaine looked at Bianca. And you? You tried to turn my own grandchildren against me. You told them I lied about everything, that I was pathetic. Bianca's nostrils flared. You are pathetic, letting everyone believe you're some big shot owner. If you had all this money, why didn't you flaunt it? Why didn't you tell us? Elaine answered simply, because I don't need to flaunt it. And because I wanted Adrian to love me for who I was, not for what I had. Bianca laughed bitterly. Well, that worked out great for you. Elaine nodded softly. Yes. It showed me exactly who you were. Marisol stepped closer. Mrs. Donald, would you like us to escort them out of the room? No, Elaine said. They can walk out on their own. Adrian stood slowly, grief carved into his expression. Mom, please, we were wrong. I was wrong. I let her get into my head. She twisted things. Bianca snapped, Don't you dare blame me, Adrian. Elaine turned to her son. Your choices are your own. You chose to believe the worst of me. You chose to mock me. You chose to speak about me like I was already dead. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Mom. Elaine's voice softened, but only slightly. You will leave tomorrow. You will pay your own bills. From now on, I will no longer support you financially. Bianca gasped. You're cutting us off? You can't. We have kids. We have a life. You should have thought about that before you treated me like garbage. Your actions have consequences. Bianca shook with rage, screaming incoherent insults. Adrian covered his face with both hands as if trying to shield himself from the truth. Elaine stood tall and unbroken. She didn't shout. She didn't cower. She simply watched them unravel. It was the first moment in years she felt in control again. The next morning, Adrian and Bianca left the resort quietly. Bianca wore sunglasses large enough to hide her swollen eyes. Adrian carried the suitcases alone. Neither spoke to Elaine. Elaine remained for 3 more days, finally savoring the resort without the shadow of humiliation. She enjoyed spa visits, long ocean walks, breakfast conversations with staff who adored her. The employees took turns checking in on her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine love. Her heart healed slowly, day by day. But the story didn't end there. 8 months passed, enough time for wounds to fester, enough time for truth to reveal itself, enough time for the universe to turn the wheel. One cold evening, Elaine heard a knock at her penthouse door. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened it, she found Adrian, standing alone. He looked thinner, older, shaken. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes hung more loosely than she remembered. Adrian, he whispered. Elaine said nothing. She simply stepped aside, allowing him in. He sat down on the sofa, his hands trembling. Bianca left. She took the kids. She drained our savings. I have nothing. Elaine listened quietly. I know I ruined our relationship. I know I hurt you. I let her get into my head. I let her control everything. I was stupid, weak, blind. Elaine's heart ached, but she didn't reach out, not yet. I want to fix things, he whispered. Elaine's voice was gentle. Trust can be rebuilt, but slowly, carefully, with honesty. He nodded desperately. Whatever it takes. Elaine finally reached out and touched his hand. We'll try, but there will be boundaries. He nodded again, tears streaming silently. For the first time in years, he looked like the boy she once knew. The one who brought her wildflowers and called her the strongest woman in the world. But the road ahead would not be easy, and Elaine would never again let herself be treated as the invisible mother, the discarded grandmother, the ignored elder. She'd reclaimed her voice, she'd reclaimed her dignity, and no one ever again would take that from her. Adrian stayed sitting on the sofa long after his tears dried, looking around Elaine's penthouse as though seeing it for the first time. He had never understood how she lived, what she owned, or who she truly was. Bianca had always framed Elaine's quiet lifestyle as something pitiful, old, outdated, lonely. But now Adrian saw the truth. The penthouse wasn't grand because of its price tag. It was grand because of what it represented: independence, strength, and a life built through sacrifice, not entitlement. The walls held paintings from local artists Elaine had supported, The furniture wasn't flashy, it was warm, elegant, sturdy. Everything in the home reflected values Bianca never appreciated and Adrian had forgotten. For the first time, Adrian realized how little he truly knew about his mother. Elaine sat across from him, hands folded calmly in her lap. She didn't rush him, she didn't comfort him, she didn't fill the silence. She let him sit with his regret. Eventually, Adrian took a deep breath. "Mom, I don't know how I let things get so bad." Elaine watched him quietly. "You allowed someone to rewrite your reality, and you believed them." Adrian lowered his head. "It started small. Bianca always said she was protecting me, that people took advantage of me. She said you were manipulative. She said you lied about things. She said you tried to control me. She twisted everything. Every time you and I had a disagreement, she amplified it. Every time you didn't respond the way she expected, she told me you were selfish or dramatic or losing your grip on reality." She absorbed those words silently. Adrian continued, voice trembling. "At first, I defended you, but she kept talking, she kept insisting, and slowly I started doubting things. I started thinking maybe she was right. Maybe you were trying to come between us." Elaine nodded softly. "That's what emotional manipulation does. It isn't loud. It's quiet erosion." Adrian covered his face. "And I let it happen. I let her poison me against you. I'm ashamed. I don't know how you can look at me right now." Elaine leaned forward slightly. "I'm looking at you because you came here. You chose to come. That means something." Adrian blinked. "I want things to be different. I want you in my life again. I want the kids to know you, really know you." Elaine's eyes softened. The children were victims too. They were fed lies before they were old enough to challenge them. That can be undone if you work on it. "I will," Adrian said quickly. "I'll take them to therapy if needed. I'll talk to them every day. I'll tell them the truth. I'll undo every lie." Elaine held up a hand. "Healing isn't about undoing. It's about rebuilding. Don't force things. Be consistent. Be present. Show them the dad they deserve." Adrian understood. He sat back, exhausted, empty, and humbled. After a long pause, he whispered, "Mom, I don't expect you to trust me. Not right away, but I will earn it." Elaine watched him with a calm, steady gaze. "Trust isn't a gift. It's a practice. We will take it one step at a time." Adrian nodded and wiped his eyes again. "I'm so sorry for everything. The lobby, the cabana, the way I treated you, the way I let Bianca treat you." Elaine didn't flinch at the memory. Humiliation doesn't break a person. It reveals the people who should not be allowed close to your heart. Adrian swallowed hard. "I want to be one of those people, allowed close to your heart." Elaine didn't smile, but there was warmth in her voice now. "Show me you deserve that place again. Consistently, patiently, without expecting anything in return." "I will," he whispered. He stayed another hour talking about the months after Bianca left, how she drained their accounts, maxed out his credit cards, sold things behind her back, and disappeared with the children. She told mutual friends that Adrian was unstable, irresponsible, and abusive. She used lies to justify leaving. Adrian fought legally to see his kids, but met resistance at every turn. Bianca filed for full custody, claiming Elaine was a dangerous, mentally declining influence on the children. She used the same lies she had fed them for years. Elaine listened with sadness, but not surprise. Manipulators didn't change. They simply relocated their cruelty. When Adrian finally stood to leave, Elaine walked him to the door. "Visit again in a few days. Give both of us time to think." He nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mom, really." As he walked away down the hallway, Elaine felt an unexpected wave of emotion. Not grief, not anger, but relief. For the first time, she saw an opening, a possibility, a future that wasn't dominated by Bianca's shadow. Elaine closed the door behind her. She walked back into the quiet warmth of her living room and sat down slowly. She let herself cry, soft, quiet tears that carried years of pain, not tears of weakness, but of release. She had survived being humiliated by her own family. She had survived being lied about. She had survived being discarded. And now she was reclaiming not just her voice, but her future. The next few months were slow but transformative. Adrian began visiting weekly. Sometimes he brought small gifts, not to impress her, but as gestures of thoughtfulness. Flowers from a local shop, a book she mentioned once decades ago, pastries from her favorite bakery. Other days he brought nothing but conversation. He apologized without expecting forgiveness. He asked questions about her life. Real questions. "Mom, how did you do it? How did you build an empire like that alone?" Elaine shared stories she had never told him. Stories of working night shifts in hotels while studying business. Stories of saving up every dollar. Stories of being laughed out of bank meetings because she was a single mother. Stories of cleaning rooms when housekeepers were sick. Stories of building something from nothing. He listened with awe, humility, and regret. The grandchildren took longer. They were confused, distrustful, conditioned by years of Bianca's lies. They weren't rude, but they were distant. Elaine didn't push them. She understood the way trauma nestled into young hearts. Instead, she simply showed up, gently, warmly, consistently. She sent birthday cards with handwritten notes. She mailed small gifts. She attended school events Adrian invited her to. She asked about their interests. She never mentioned Bianca, never mentioned the past. Slowly, they softened. One afternoon after a school play, her granddaughter walked up and hugged her. It was small and quick, but it meant more to Elaine than any business award she's had ever received. Her grandson asked if she would come to his soccer game. She did. Little steps, little cracks of light. Healing wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 drops of patience. And then, nearly 2 years after the trip, something happened that Elaine did not expect. Bianca reached out. Her message was brief. "I need to talk to you." Elaine read it twice before closing her phone. She didn't reply. Adrian called an hour later. "Mom, Bianca wants to meet with you. She says she regrets everything." Elaine exhaled slowly. People regret losing control, not losing people. Adrian hesitated. "I think she's falling apart without the money, without the image, without the access." Elaine was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You can meet her if you want, but I won't." "Are you sure?" Adrian asked softly. Elaine nodded firmly. "I don't need apologies from people who never valued me." And that was that. Bianca drifted out of our lives like a storm that had lost its thunder. Elaine continued rebuilding her relationship with Adrian and her grandchildren at her own pace. She didn't rush. She didn't cling. She didn't expect perfection. She simply allowed space for love to return slowly and naturally. One evening, Adrian said something that stayed with her forever. "Mom, you were the strongest person I knew as a child, and now I see you still are." Elaine smiled gently. "Strength isn't loud. It's choosing yourself even when it hurts." Adrian nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'm grateful you didn't give up on me." Elaine placed a hand on his. I gave up on the version of you that hurt me, but I never gave up on the possibility of who you could become. And in that moment, across decades of heartbreak and healing, they both understood something profound. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by behavior. And sometimes, distance is what allows love to return without poison. Elaine never again allowed anyone, family or not, to make her small. She lived the rest of her life with dignity, strength, and peace she had earned tenfold. And though she never received closure from Bianca, she realized she didn't need it. Some apologies are too small to matter. Some wounds are too deep to reopen. And some stories are not about reconciliation, but about remembering your worth long after others have forgotten it. Elaine found a truth far greater than any betrayal she endured. You don't need to be loved by the wrong people to live a meaningful life. You just need the courage to walk away from them. Her voice, once silenced, now carried farther than ever. And she knew deep in her bones that reclaiming it had been the greatest victory of all.